For the past few days I've been playing with the Synapse Obsession, or the Synapse Obsession. I've been playing with the Arturia OBXa a couple of weeks ago and I had a little play with that versus the OB6, and I couldn't wait for this to come out because when I do a mini mode comparison, a mini mode sort of shootout of various apps, I'd never heard of Synapse before, and their legend won it. It was a really great emulation of the mini mode and it stood up really well to my hardware. So looking forward to this because I'm a big fan of the sort of OB sound, and I've got an OB6 myself, as you may have seen when I compared it with the Arturia. But here I just thought I'll go through the sort of main functions of this, show how it works and sort of my views on it. I've been playing with it, as I say, for the past few days, and it's got a really nice lush sound. It's really clever, loads of little bits to get into. It's not all bells and whistles, it's not a synth for every occasion, but it is a really nice Oberheim style soft synth. So let's just sort of kick off really by just describing what it is, what it does. Two oscillators like all the OBs. You've got a saw, pulse or a triangle on both the waves. Triangle comes when you've not got anything pressed there. You'll notice it's got the sort of OB style buttons that you push. It's got a 4-pole mode, a 2-pole mode and a bandpass. Two ADSRs, one for the filter, one for the amplitude. You've got two LFOs with sort of just the basic sort of modulation capabilities that you got on the original. So you've got pulse width, oscillator frequencies and the filter. You've also got a unison mode, which it was very famous for, oscillator 2 detune and a cross mod. And on this the modulation modulates oscillator 2 with oscillator 1 as opposed to the OBX, which was modulating oscillator 1 with oscillator 2, which is what the OB6 does, and the Arturia as well. So slightly different, but it does make a different change in tone, and I'll go through that later. And if we click up here, we get to sort of page 2, and then we've got delay, reverb and chorus. Reverb's got this really beautiful shimmer I'll show. Modulation matrix, you've got 6 slots, plenty of destinations and quite a few sources as well. And then you've got this extra sort of LFO function as well, where you can do a stepped LFO, which if we look here, that's what this option is here. And then we've got this organic mode, which is like slop on the Dave Smith instruments, saturation, a limiter, and yeah, and that's about it. So it's sort of very simple to get to grips with, but everything it does really well, and it sounds beautiful. You can have it in single voice, dual mode, or split voices. You've got voice A and voice B, and you can have 8 or 16, and down here you can see the 16 voices and the voice adjustment options you've got down there. And if we just look at that quickly, so if we go to voice 1, voice adjustment, you can go into all these different parameters and adjust them for this voice. So each of the voices has its own individual tuning, individual filter response, etc, etc. So you've got different offsets on the LFO, for example, an offset on the depth, offsets on the filter. You can different scales on this, so you can go quite wild on it. And this is all savable per patch, which means you can get really different sounds on a patch by patch basis. And this is in addition to, don't forget, this organic sort of slop mode as well. So let's kick off by looking at the oscillators then, shall we? Let's just have turned voices 2 to 8 off down here, so we're listening to one voice. So this is how you change the polyphony. Let's go back into there, put a sawtooth on. Let's pull up our little oscilloscope and our frequency analysis. And you notice the frequency is on full there and it sounds a bit soft. It doesn't sound very bright at all, does it? And that's because, like all these OB things, the envelope amount is sort of required to be up in order to get your full frequency response. If I just play this now. So that's not doing anything. It's not taking the frequency, the cutoff frequency down, because the envelope amount's on full. So to get the lowest cutoff frequency, you need the envelope amount on 0, or the sustain over here to be on 0. I've set this up with my sub 37, so I've done that slightly wrong. Just show you how you set up with MIDI lane, twist the knob, there you go, done, really simple. So the interaction between the envelope amount, the sustain and the frequency is all important here. So it's not broken if your frequency knob's not doing anything. It's just the way the OBXs work. Anyway, we're looking at the oscillators now, but sort of something important to note before you kick off, I suppose. Let's put all that on full. So nice and stable. Now I'm going to go in and change this organic knob. And you'll see everything wobbling up at the top end there. But it's doing it pretty randomly. It's not a constant sort of like an LFO. If I bring in, say, all the voices and do the same, put it on unison. You'll notice that these fundamental frequencies here are bobbing up and down, but they're not bobbing up and down regularly. They're just sort of up and down and up a bit, down a bit. Which is a nice touch, it makes it sound really organic. It's actually instant big unison OB sound, isn't it? Let's bring in oscillator 2 as well. And if you wanted more sort of variation on that, you go in and you change them. So let's try that with oscillator 1. Let's take it off unison and take this organic mode off. Put just oscillator 1 on. There we go. And if we go in and we change the frequency of that, they're completely detuning it. Compare that to oscillator 2. So we've completely broken that old synth, haven't we? It's better. And you can do this with the frequency, the resonance, envelope amount, etc., etc. So should we try it with the frequency of the cutoff and the resonance and compare that with 2. Let's put them at 0. Whack the resonance up and take the envelope amount down. You'll hear that number 1, which is all the way down, sounds completely different to 2, 3 and 4. Really nice, clever way of doing it. The only thing I would say is that'd be great if that went up to 11. I do like a little bit more sloppiness without having to go in and change these independently. Because sometimes I've been playing around and I wanted this just to be a bit more out, and I've got to go through each of the sounds and change the scale of them. Maybe there's a way of doing that. I've not found it in the manual. Maybe someone can leave that in the comments. But that's my only sort of negative on that. It's not really a negative, it's just a wish list really for a version 1.1. So while we're on the oscillators, let's take a look at the other functions we've got here. Let's take these off just so we can play with one of them. So we've seen the unison mode, oscillator 2 detune. So here we're on semitones. Let's put oscillator 2 on. Let's put the frequency up. Envelope amount up. That can go up 63 semitones, and oscillator 1 only has sort of options of 4 octaves. But as I said earlier, on this you modulate oscillator 2 with oscillator 1 in cross modulation. Obviously they're the same frequency there, but because this goes all the way up to 5 octaves higher, it allows all sorts of nicer tones, I think, than the other way around. I just find that really easier to get tones that I like with. I'm on a split voice there. Let's put it on a single, shall we? So I'm really impressed with how easy it is to play around with the cross mod on this and get good sounding tones. As soon as I started playing with that, I was really impressed. We've also got oscillator sync. And that can be modulated by the filter envelope. So although I've not found a way to adjust the amount of filter envelope on that. I'm not sure there is, unless it's just this amount here. Yes, it is. It took me ages looking for something the other day. That's quite funny. And as I'm playing around, I'm sort of doing it purposefully. Just everything's sounding nice, isn't it? So let's move on to a pulse and have a listen to a bit of PWM. Let's take oscillator mod off, listen to just oscillator 1. So we go 50%, all the way down to about 10. And we can actually offset that as well using this pulse width here. It's slightly out there. Again, another nice touch. So let's modulate it with LFO1 on a sine. I was having difficulty with this with the OBXa from Arturia. Because it sounds a bit uneven there, like it sort of holds on. Instead of being sort of a smooth transition. And I think that's obviously something the OBXs did, because both these recreations did it. Not having one to hand, I can't check, but pretty certain that they both haven't got it wrong. Let's just change the pulse width a bit there. And add a bit of this beautiful organic mode. Definitely got a vintage feel. maybe a little too vintage there. So let's just look at that pulse width modulation on oscillator 1 on its own when we've got the saw and the pulse. All very nice. So I think that brings us to the end of the oscillators. I think I've checked everything there. Oscillator detunes, oscillator detune, we know what that is. Modulation and the different waveforms, yeah. So time to move over to the filter. So as I said earlier, things are dependent on this envelope amount as well, but let's just have a listen to it. So let's have a listen to it in 2-pole mode. Okay, so putting the resonance on full, envelope amount on full, put the sustain on 0, so I've got quite a lot of movement with the frequency. It'll only take me up to 1.5, so then I've got to add sustain. And as I said, I'm using the sub 37 to modulate that. I don't know if it's any smoother with anything else, but there's slightly difficult to get a smoother on there, but I think that's just the resolution of my mouse clicking and the knobs and stuff like that. But it is a nice sound, isn't it? Down at this end, it sounds absolutely fine. Put the decay on, so. And with the decay on full, this isn't doing anything now because it's waiting for the decay to drop it down to the sustain level. Drives me insane. But it is what it is, you know. If you want it to act like an OBX, an OBXa, that's how they acted. So 4-pole mode. So it's not the most resonant, is it? But it's got a nice sort of mellow sort of tone to it. Nice and very usable. Put it on a chord. Try that again in 2-pole. Prefer it in 2-pole. Funny that I'm playing with the envelope amount rather than the frequency knob. And then we've got bandpass as well. And we can track the keyboard, and there's noise as well. Let's have a listen to the noise. Let's put it on low pass. white noise, got a bit of hump at the bottom, but yeah, noise. So quite loud as well, which is useful. Well, you don't have any way of adjusting it in the mix. Let's just have a look at these LFOs in a little bit more detail, shall we? Let's just have oscillator 1 playing. Let's modulate it with the LFO going as fast as it can. It's not super fast. And also, it's not syncable unless you're in this LFO sort of step mode. So we go into the step mode. It's good, but it would be nice to be able to sync up the others as well. And it moves it away from the original, but it's a useful thing to have. It's also got one-shot mode. And filter envelope retriggering. I don't think that works on the others. Let's just try it. Let's just put one oscillator on. And that's not re-triggering, is it? We go back to this one. Okay, and let's have a listen to Sample and Hold. Sample and Hold is one of my favourite sort of OB sounds. That was just an excuse really for me to play The Beautiful Ones by Prince. Well, the intro to it at least. So, I think we've done the first page. I think we've looked at everything here. Pitch bend, modulation wheel. Not too interesting. A or B, so 2 patches. Patch B. Patch A. Patch B. So we're on single mode here. Play patch B. Oh, go to dual mode. Let's just make B really high. There's B. There's A. And here's a blend. Which is a nice touch. Small, medium, and large. So that's pretty massive, big as you want. Let's go back to a single oscillator on a sawtooth, and let's see what this spread does. I'm not sure where you can set the panning of each of the voices, because it's not there, is it? Here it is in the top right when you're in voice adjustment mode. Pan left or right, so voice 1 is fully left, voice 2 is fully right. Got volume there. Oh. And even semitones out, that's quite cool. So yeah, I think I've done the front page. So moving over to the back page, which we've got the effects. So turn the effects on here on the front page, go around to the back, turn them on and off here as well. Let's go back to a quick sawtooth. Spread back on 0. A little bit of release. Okay, let's put a bit of delay on, see what that sounds like. And oddly, it doesn't seem you can take the sync off this, because sometimes it's nice not to be synced. So it doesn't go into feedback mode, it doesn't go sort of Roland space echoey and mental. But it's got a pretty nice tone. Shame you can't unsync it though. The reverb is by far my favourite on this. Nice and dark. My favourite bit's this shimmer. And add the regeneration. And let's just turn this into a nice pad, shall we? And why more synths don't have a built-in shimmer algorithm is beyond me, because that just, I mean, it's a nice effect, and the Strymon Blue Sky does it brilliantly. Valhalla Shimmer. But it's such a sort of famous effect. It's really weird. Maybe it's just really difficult to do well, but they've done it really well there. Really like it, and it's used on lots of the presets as well to their benefit. So it's really easy to start getting beautiful tones out of this. Really quite simple. Compared to the Arturia OBXa, it's got lots more effects and lots more tweakability. I like that this has got sort of limited parameters to tweak, because it just stops you getting too in-depth when you're doing stuff, and you sort of get slightly obsessed by the tiniest details. So I like it when someone's picked out the parameters that you need to get it sounding good. And then we have the modulation matrix. So the LFOs can be signed to different things as well, and as can the filter envelope. LFO1 times the aftertouch to the cutoff. Hard to tell, but I'm pressing the keys harder. I'm getting a bit of sample and hold, am I? Yeah. It's actually quite a nice way of getting sort of multiple sources to the same destination. And then finally, really, we've got the saturator. Let's take it out. Let's take the effects out for now, shall we? Put it back in. Let's try that on some bass tones. So what we got on the bass. So just an electric bass. Yeah, it's nice. It's got a nice sort of fat sound to it. It's not the most tweakable, but it is just a bit of VCA saturation. Yeah, I know. These are up nicely, not an effect as such, just a sort of slightly different change in tone. And then finally, just a word about the presets. It's got lots and lots of very nice, very usable presets. Although, as with every set of presets ever come across, obviously the presets are designed to show how the synth works and to show what you can do with it, so they throw everything into every patch a lot of the time. So the effects seem to be on all the time. It's nice without the effects, isn't it? I mean, it's good to be able to see what the effects can do for you. Sequences. Very clever. Let's take the effects off, see what's happening here. Got LFO1 going to oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 semitones. I've just moved that somehow. Oscillator 2 semi. So LFO2, slightly different. Very clever. So it hasn't got an arpeggiator like the OBXa AV from Arturia, but you can do arpeggiated stuff with this. I've not noticed that before. That's very clever. I like that. Glassmosphere. Really nice, these, aren't they? Pad and trumpet. It's got the split point on C3. Not really a fan of splits. Got sequencers and doors and all the rest of it. So tons and tons of stuff in here. Almost sounds like the Daft Punk track. Almost. Again, loads of effects. Why do people do this? But you get the gist. Really nice, tons and tons of stuff in there to get you started. Just take the effects off, as you do with sort of every single preset pack I've ever come across. They seem to love using the really nice effects, but you know, sometimes take them off. Maybe there should be an effectsless section as well. Maybe that's what the vintage ones are. Should we try that? Nah, the effects are on. Anyway, let's not linger on that, because in conclusion, I think this is a really, really nice sounding synth. It's really quite simple to get to grips with. You know, you can get into sort of dirty detail if you really want to, but the sound quality is excellent. I do like the simplicity of it as well. It doesn't sound like loads of things. It sounds like an Oberheim. I'm planning on putting it up against the Arturia, the Sonic Project's OPX, and the, is it Dat Sound's OBXD, the sort of free version as well. I mean, I've played with all of them, but this one does sound really nice. So it's well worth checking out. It's £79, $99 and €89, I think it is as well. Where are we on euro? Yeah, €89. So comes highly recommended from me, so well worth checking out. You can download the free version of it, have a little play around with it if you like. I don't think you can save patches on it and stuff like that. It's limited slightly, but I think it's got all the functionality in there. Well worth a go. Enjoy. And if you did enjoy that and you haven't already, please hit subscribe. And if you're into programming your synths, check out my Patreon page where I've got over 6 hours of tutorials on how to program almost any synth, which is basically subtractive synthesis, how each of the sections work, how they all fit together and how they all create sounds. And if you're trying to get away from your patches, especially ones with too many effects, might be a good place to start. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time.